I never planned on staying late that night. Honestly, I was already halfway out the door when she called my name, her voice clipped, steady, like it always was. Can you look at this for me before you leave? Her office light was the only one still on. The rest of the building was dark, humming faintly with the sound of the air vents. I hesitated at the doorway, laptop bag slung over my shoulder, before stepping back inside. She was there behind her desk, leaning slightly over a stack of papers, a pair of reading glasses balanced low on her nose. Miss Hartman. My boss. 40-something, always immaculate, always composed. I'd been her assistant for barely 3 months, but every detail about her had already carved its way into my memory. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was focused. The way her perfume lingered long after she'd left a room. I dropped my bag on the chair and crossed the room. What's wrong with it? She didn't look up immediately, just tapped her pen against a sheet of numbers. It's probably nothing, but if you could just double-check. I bent over her desk, close enough to notice how faintly her perfume mixed with coffee that had gone cold. The spreadsheet was fine. Perfect, actually. She didn't need me there. Looks good, I said. My voice came out lower than I meant. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes locked on mine, steady, unreadable, but I felt heat crawl into my chest, all the way to my throat. And then, she adjusted her glasses and sat back. Then I suppose I kept you for nothing. There was a pause. I should have left right then. But her gaze didn't move, and neither did I. For a second, the office felt too quiet, too private. You don't mind staying late, do you? She asked suddenly, almost like she already knew the answer. I shrugged. Depends on why. Her lips curved, just slightly, the kind of smile that wasn't really a smile at all. She reached for her coffee, grimaced when she tasted it cold, and set it down again. I suppose it's not the work. It's the company. The way she said it was too casual, but her fingers lingered on the rim of her mug, tapping once, then still. My pulse kicked up. I wanted to say something back, but nothing came out. Instead, she changed the subject. You're too young to waste evenings in an office. Don't you have better places to be? Her tone was light, but the question hung heavy. I should have laughed it off, said something about friends waiting at a bar, or homework, or whatever excuse young men are supposed to have. But I couldn't. I'm here, I said finally. That's enough. Her eyes softened for just a flicker, and I swear she almost looked away. Almost. Then the sound of the elevator doors echoed from down the hall, startling both of us back into the present. She gathered the papers quickly, as if remembering herself, and handed them to me. Take these home. Work on them tomorrow. Her fingers brushed mine when I reached for them, light, quick, but enough to set fire along my skin. She pulled her hand back immediately, too quickly, as though the contact itself had been dangerous. And then she said it, low enough that I almost thought I imagined it. You'll never forget tonight. The words froze me in place. The elevator doors closed again in the distance, the hallway quieting. I stood there, papers in my hand, watching her eyes hold mine just a moment longer than they should have before she turned away, leaving me with a silence that felt heavier than any order she'd ever given. I left her office that night with the papers under my arm, but the weight wasn't the pages, it was the words she'd whispered. You'll never forget tonight. They followed me home, into my shower, even into my dreams. I kept replaying the way her fingers brushed mine, the way she looked at me as if she was daring me not to react. The next morning, she was already at her desk when I walked in, hair pinned up, expression calm, as if nothing had happened. Except I noticed, for the first time, that she'd left her jacket draped over the back of the chair instead of hanging neatly. Her coffee cup wasn't where it usually sat. Her order was slightly off. I told myself I was imagining it. By the third week of working late, though, I stopped pretending. She leaned on the edge of her desk that night, papers scattered between us. You know, she said, voice lower than usual, most people would have quit by now. I'm not easy to work for. You're not, I admitted, then immediately wished I hadn't. But she only smiled faintly, almost like she wanted me to say it. And yet you stay. I couldn't tell her the truth, that I stayed because the silence in her office felt better than the noise anywhere else. That the pull I felt toward her was something I couldn't shake even if I wanted to. Instead, I looked down at the papers. Someone has to keep you from drowning in numbers. Her laugh was short, tired. Not the kind you give in meetings, but something smaller, rawer. She pressed a hand to her temple. I'm not sure I'd even notice if I did. That stopped me. She never said things like that. Miss Hartman was always composed, always the one giving direction, never admitting cracks in the surface. Seeing her like this, vulnerable, almost fragile, made me want to step closer, even when I knew I shouldn't. I watched her fingers tap once, then curl against her temple. Her nails were short, practical. No rings. Not anymore, anyway. Rough week? I asked carefully. Rough year, she corrected, then waved it off like she regretted saying it. I didn't push, but the word stuck. The office had gone quiet again, the hum of the lights filling the spaces between us. I could feel myself teetering on the edge of something reckless, like a line I wasn't supposed to cross. She straightened then, smoothing the fabric of her blouse, as if remembering who she was supposed to be in front of me. Still, her eyes lingered on mine. You should go, she said softly. Then, after a pause that made my chest tighten, unless you'd rather stay. My breath caught. She reached out, fingers brushing my arm this time, not by accident, not quickly, but deliberate, light, waiting to see if I'd pull away. I didn't. Her hand lingered on my arm longer than it should have. I could feel the warmth of her touch through my shirt, small but steady, as if she was testing the air between us. I should have stepped back. I should have said something safe, something that reset the room. Instead, I stayed rooted there, every part of me tuned to that single point of contact. Why me? I asked before I could stop myself. Her brow creased slightly. What do you mean? You could have asked anyone to stay late. Anyone to help. Why me? The silence stretched. She let her hand fall, folding it neatly with the other on the desk, as if retreating behind an invisible wall. But her eyes didn't waver. Because you notice things, she said at last. Most people don't. It landed heavier than I expected. I noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way she adjusted her blouse like armor, the faint line at the corner of her mouth she didn't let anyone else see. But hearing her acknowledge it made me feel exposed too, like she'd seen through me just as much. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed on the desk. The sudden vibration cut sharp through the quiet. She glanced at the screen, jaw tightening, and flipped it over without answering. Sorry, she murmured. But she didn't explain. That single act, ignoring the call, choosing this moment instead, made the room feel even smaller. I tried to pull back, to ground myself in professionalism. We should probably finish the reports, I said, stacking the papers though my hands weren't steady. Do you really think that's what this is about? She asked quietly. My throat tightened. She wasn't smiling, wasn't teasing. Her voice was careful, like each word risked too much. I shook my head, though I couldn't bring myself to say it aloud. Then came the knock. Sharp, 2 quick raps on her office door. Both of us froze. Miss Hartman, a voice called. Another assistant. The sound of footsteps shifting in the hall. She stood abruptly, smoothing her skirt, and answered through the door. I'll be out shortly. Her voice was crisp, professional, as if nothing inside this office had slipped. We waited in silence until the footsteps faded. Then, slowly, she sat back down, her eyes locking onto mine again, softer now, but heavier with something unspoken. That could have been complicated, I said. My attempt at humor came out rough. Her lips curved faintly, though her gaze didn't break. It already is. I felt it then, more than ever, the line we weren't supposed to cross, the pull daring us closer anyway. My pulse hammered in my throat. She reached forward, brushing a stray page toward me, but her fingertips grazed mine again, deliberate, unhurried this time. The air thickened. My chest ached with everything I wanted to say but couldn't. And then she whispered, barely audible, "Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me you don't feel it." Her words hung in the air like a live wire. My mouth went dry. I should have lied, said no, said this was nothing, said I was imagining the tension that had been building between us for weeks. But I couldn't. "I can't," I whispered. For the first time since I'd known her, Miss Hartman's breath faltered. Her composure cracked, just slightly, like glass under pressure. She leaned back in her chair as if distance might save us, but her eyes stayed locked on mine. "This is wrong," she said softly, almost to herself. "I'm your boss." "I shouldn't." "Then stop." I cut in before I could think. My voice came out rough, unsteady. "Stop keeping me here. Stop looking at me like that. Stop making me hope for something I shouldn't." The words spilled faster than I could catch them, and once they were out, I couldn't take them back. Her lips parted, but no sound came. For a moment, I thought she'd tell me to leave, that this was the end of everything. Instead, she pressed her hand flat against the desk, steadying herself. "You think I don't notice?" she said finally. "The way you stay when you don't have to? The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching? Don't pretend it's only me." My chest tightened, heat crawling up my neck. I wanted to deny it, but the truth was already in the air, raw and undeniable. Silence filled the office, broken only by the faint hum of the overhead lights. I could hear her breathing, controlled, measured, but a little too quick. I shifted closer, not touching her, but close enough that I could see the faint tremor in her hand where it rested on the desk. Close enough that if I reached out, even slightly, I could close the gap. "I don't want to ruin this for you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to ruin you." Her eyes softened, pain flickering there. "You already have," she murmured. But there was no anger in it, only confession, quiet and bare. The words hit harder than any rejection could have. I swallowed, searching for something to say, something to anchor us before we slipped completely. But the longer I held her gaze, the more impossible it became. I saw the way her lips parted like she wanted to speak but couldn't. I saw the way her shoulders rose and fell, caught between control and collapse. I leaned forward, instinct pulling me, and for a heartbeat our faces were closer than they had any right to be. Close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath, close enough that one more inch would shatter everything. Neither of us moved. The moment stretched, unbearable, and then she whispered, "What happens if we stop pretending? What happens if we stop pretending?" Her questions still hung between us when the sound broke, her phone buzzing again, louder this time, insistent. She closed her eyes briefly, as though the interruption had been inevitable. Then, with a sharp breath, she flipped the phone over. The name flashing on the screen hit me harder than I expected. Daniel. I'd seen it before, months ago, when she left her phone on her desk. Back then I thought nothing of it. Tonight, though, I couldn't stop myself. "Who keeps calling you?" The words slipped out before I could pull them back. Her eyes snapped to mine, startled, not angry, not yet, but caught. "That's not your business." But she didn't end the call. She didn't silence it either. She let it buzz out, one ring after another, until the room fell quiet again. Only then did she speak. "My ex-husband." The words were clipped, but her jaw was tight, her fingers curled into the desk like the truth had cost her. I froze. Somehow, I'd never let myself think of her in that context, not as someone broken open by someone else, not as someone carrying invisible weight long before I walked into her office. "He still thinks he has a right to interrupt my life," she added bitterly, almost under her breath. "Even now." Her voice cracked on that last word. Subtle, almost hidden, but I heard it. I felt it. I stepped closer before I thought about it. "That's why you stay late." Her eyes widened, but she didn't deny it. "You don't want to go home," I said softly. "Because he still lingers there. Even when he's gone." She swallowed hard, her gaze dropping to the papers between us like they could shield her. For once, she had no script, no polished response. Just silence. The realization cut through me, sharp and raw. This wasn't just temptation. It wasn't just me chasing something forbidden. She was standing on a fault line too, balancing between what she'd lost and what she might still want, terrified the ground would split. "Tell me I'm wrong," I whispered. She looked up, eyes shining faintly, and shook her head. "You're not." The room tilted then, like the axis had shifted. What I'd taken for control, her composure, her authority, her restraint, it was all paper-thin. And beneath it, she was just as tangled, just as vulnerable as I was. I wanted to touch her, to close the distance, to tell her she didn't have to carry it alone. But before I could, the knock came again. Sharper this time. Closer. "Miss Hartman." The voice was different now, deeper, firmer. "It's Daniel. Open the door." She went pale. My chest tightened. Her hand hovered above mine, trembling as her gaze flicked toward the door. She whispered only one word, low, urgent, breaking. "Stay. Stay." Her word was a whisper, but it rooted me in place like an anchor. The knock came again, harder this time. "Daniel." His voice was sharp through the door, too familiar, too entitled. "Claire, I know you're in there. We need to talk." She flinched at the sound of her name. For weeks, I'd only ever called her Miss Hartman, carefully, respectfully, but hearing it from him, filled with command, made something inside me twist. Her hand was still hovering near mine. I closed the gap, covering her fingers with my own. She looked at me, startled, breath catching in her throat. "You don't have to open it," I whispered. Her eyes searched mine, wide, uncertain. "He won't stop." "Then let him knock." For a long moment, we just sat there in silence, the pounding at the door on one side, our joined hands on the other. She was trembling. Not visibly, not enough for anyone else to see. But I felt it. Finally, she pulled her hand away, pressing her palms flat against the desk like she needed to steady herself. "This isn't fair to you," she said softly. "You're too young. You don't know what it means to be broken like this." I swallowed, heat rising in my chest. "Maybe I don't. But I know what it means to want you. And I'm tired of pretending I don't." Her breath caught. She looked away, toward the door, then back at me, like she was caught between two lives and didn't know which one still belonged to her. Daniel's voice came again, muffled but insistent. "Claire, open the damn door." Her jaw tightened. Then, with a steadiness I hadn't seen in her before, she called back, "Go home, Daniel. We're done." The silence that followed was sharp, disbelieving. Then footsteps retreated down the hall. The building swallowed him whole. She exhaled, long and shaky, as if she'd been holding that breath for years. I stood, moving closer. She didn't pull away this time. Her eyes glistened, tired but alive in a way I hadn't seen until now. "You shouldn't have to carry this alone," I murmured. "And you shouldn't have to carry me," she said back, voice breaking. We stood there, inches apart, the office heavy with everything unsaid. For once, neither of us tried to fill the silence. It wrapped around us, fragile but real. Finally, she whispered, "If we do this, there's no going back." I nodded, my throat tight. "I don't want to go back." Her lips trembled, the faintest smile breaking through the fear. Slowly, carefully, she reached for my hand again, not trembling this time, not uncertain. And when her fingers laced with mine, the weight between us didn't feel forbidden anymore. It felt chosen. The office felt different after that. Lighter somehow, though nothing had truly changed. Same desk, same papers, same hum of the fluorescent lights. But the silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It breathed. She was still holding my hand when she finally spoke. "I don't even know what this makes us." "Neither do I admitted. But maybe we don't need to name it yet." Her lips curved faintly, not quite a smile, more like relief breaking through. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked less like my boss and more like herself, tired, imperfect, but free. The past few weeks unraveled in my head like film running backward. The late nights, the glances that lasted too long, the way her voice softened when she forgot to keep it sharp. All of it had led here to a moment we'd both tried to deny until we couldn't anymore. She exhaled slowly, letting her shoulders fall. You've changed everything, you know. I thought I was done with feeling like this. I thought I wasn't supposed to start. That made her laugh, small, warm, surprised. And it loosened something in me too. The truth was, nothing about this was simple. She was older, my boss, still untangling herself from the grip of someone who wouldn't let go. And me? I was young, reckless maybe, but sure of one thing. I couldn't walk away from the way she made me feel. We left the office together that night. Her jacket draped over her arm, my bag slung across my shoulder, our steps in sync down the empty hallway. It wasn't dramatic, no stolen kiss under the streetlights, no grand declarations. Just two people deciding, quietly, to move forward instead of back. When we reached the door, she paused, keys in her hand. If this falls apart, it might, I said honestly. But at least we'll know we didn't run from it. Her eyes lingered on me a moment longer, and then she nodded, slipping her arm through mine as we stepped into the night air. Looking back, I don't know if it was fate, timing, or just two broken edges fitting together in the right moment. What I do know is this: sometimes the line you're afraid to cross is the one that leads you exactly where you're supposed to be. Maybe it isn't about age, titles, or rules. Maybe it's about the way someone sees you really sees you, when you've forgotten how to see yourself. And once that happens, you can't go back to pretending.